The Department of Justice asked a federal court to block Friday's ruling that threatens access to a key drug that's used in medication abortion. That ruling came on Friday evening from a district judge in Texas who was appointed by Donald Trump. It would suspend the Food and Drug Administration's 20-year-old approval of mifepristone, which is one of two medications that's used together in the majority of medication abortions in this country. In fact, they make up the majority of all abortions in this country now. And that further complicates things. Another federal judge, this time in Washington state, issued a dueling ruling on mifepristone on Friday night. His decision in an entirely separate case bars the FDA from, quote, altering the status quo and rights as it relates to the availability of mifepristone. And now that we have these two contradictory rulings, the issue could soon land before the Supreme Court. In the meantime, there is bipartisan agreement among the likes of New York Democrat Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and South Carolina Republican Nancy Mace, who both say that Republicans are on the wrong side of this issue and the FDA should just ignore the ruling from the Texas judge.
This is an issue that Republicans have been largely on the wrong side of. We have, over the last 9 months, not shown compassion towards women. And this is one of those issues that I've tried to lead on as someone who's pro-life and just have some common sense. In the state of South Carolina, just a few weeks ago, we had some folks in the state legislature that essentially wanted to execute women who had abortions. So we've got some extreme views on this issue, but 90% of America is somewhere in the middle. And I think that 90% would be okay with listening to the FDA rather than a judge who used an old law that was determined unconstitutional by the Supreme Court.
Governor Gretchen Whitmer is a Democrat of Michigan. Last week, she repealed her state's 1931 ban on abortion. She joins me now. Governor, good to see you. Thank you for being with us.
Hi, Allie. Good to be with you.
You have been fighting to protect abortion rights in Michigan. This was central to your reelection campaign last fall. Your state responded to the fall of Roe v. Wade with a ballot measure to ensure a woman's right to an abortion. And that issue drove voters to the polls who might not have otherwise even turned out. With all of that, this ruling out of Texas could affect the ability of women to get abortions, even in a place like Michigan, where it's entirely legal.
Well, it's true. And, it's really kind of stunning that we have one, a right-wing group picked an extreme judge. They cherry-picked him. And now he has substituted this wild-eyed opinion for what has been effective, safe medical care for women for decades. The people of this country are telling us over and over again, they expect these fundamental rights to continue to be there for future generations. You look at Kansas, Wisconsin, Michigan. In 2016, they were completely Republican-controlled states. Now there are 3 Democratic governors. The people have spoken. They expect these rights. Overwhelmingly, they turn out. So this is not a Republican or Democratic issue. This is an issue that the majority of people in this country expect to have been settled and want to have these tools in the event that a woman is in a position that she needs to make a decision about her future. And guess what? That happens every day in this country.
Ahead of the election in November, polling in Michigan showed that 43% of your state's voters said that abortion was, in fact, the single biggest issue motivating them to vote. On Election Day, voters approved this amendment to the state constitution guaranteeing a right to an abortion. How much was the threat to abortion rights a factor in you and your Democratic colleagues sweeping the state last year? How big a deal was that particular topic?
I think it was a big part of it. We had gerrymandered districts for the first time. That helped, too. Voting rights was definitely on the ballot as well. But I think abortion was central, right? I did roundtables all across the state, Allie, and it was when I was sitting there, a Republican woman who said, I didn't vote for you when you first ran in 2018. I've never voted for Democrat, but I'm knocking doors for you, and I'm going to make sure that we pass this constitutional amendment because I'm furious that people are trying to take rights away from my daughters.
If this mifepristone ruling stands, and we don't know how this is going to go, it's all going to play out this week. If Republicans around the country get their way, or extreme Republicans, I'll put it that way, it's going to become more dangerous to be a woman of reproductive age in this country. How does someone like you, who's at the top of the decision-making food chain in your state, fight against that threat that it's not simply an abstract right to abortion, which is what many people thought when Roe v. Wade fell, but it's truly this threat you're talking about to bodily autonomy, safety of women who become pregnant, and decision making that should be part of a woman's life on a daily basis.
Well, we're trying to anticipate where the next attack's coming from. I mean, this is not settled. This is not over. We amended our Constitution in Michigan, double-digit decision. I mean, it wasn't even close. And yet we know that with this Texas judge, a lot of those tools are now very much at risk once again. And that's why we worked with our insurers to make sure that they would not withdraw coverage for mifepristone. I don't know that other states have done that, but we foresaw where this was going. There's going to be a lot of work ahead. Now is not the time to check out or to make an assumption that these are settled rights, whether it's here in Michigan or any part of this country. This is still very much at risk, and there's still a lot of work to do.
Some of this is about extremism around abortion positions, but some of it's about extremism generally. This is something you have uniquely faced in your time in office. We are seeing Republicans around this country staking out extreme legislative positions on not just abortion, but Idaho. The governor's just signed a bill making it illegal to help a minor obtain an abortion out of state. Florida Republicans have advanced a 6-week ban that's about to be signed by the governor. Anybody who's read a pamphlet on menstrual cycles understands that a 6-week ban is effectively a total ban on abortions. To some people, the fall of Roe was couched in terms of letting states decide. And now what we're seeing is that this is like Margaret Atwood's Handmaid's Tale. The stuff that's happening to women, particularly in the southeast of this country, is draconian.
Well, what do these guys stand for? Other than to take away rights from people, what do they really stand for? I think that's where my frustration is. Here in Michigan, we've expanded rights for the LGBTQ community. We have expanded workers' rights. We have expanded reproductive rights. We've made Michigan a more competitive state that is going to lure talent here. And these other governors and legislatures are trying to roll back those rights to target people. We got big problems in this country to solve. We've got to worry about national security, cyber attacks. We've got climate change. I mean, there's a million things we could be working on that all of humanity depends on us getting right. And yet they're waging war against their own people. It's crazy. And if this continues, I think that we are going to be very much a nation at risk, as well as the democracy that we've been fighting so hard to make sure continues and is safe. And voting rights, I mean, there's just so much at risk here, Allie. And I just cannot get my head around where these guys are going. We deserve better. We're leading here in Michigan. It's been a productive 100 days, and people are looking for a state where you can be who you are and have all the rights you've come to expect. Maybe you should move to Michigan.
Your Secretary of State, I'm from Ontario, so I think the argument about moving to Michigan is actually a really good idea. But your Secretary of State was sort of at the tip of the spear on voting rights, which was also a very, very big issue in your election. You were running against the top people in the ticket on the Republican Party in Michigan, had anti-abortion stances, were generally speaking election deniers, and had extreme positions on a number of matters. But I always wonder how the governor of Michigan handles the gun issue. You are a state that has a lot of hunters, a lot of outdoors people, and a lot of guns. Some of them are used irresponsibly. Some were almost used in a plot to kidnap you. You have taken action on guns just in the last week.
Yeah, this week I'll be signing legislation to require secure storage and background checks. And what the good news is, the overwhelming majority of gun owners support these pieces of legislation. This is something that crosses both sides of the aisle. I talked to my good friend Andy Beshear today. It's heartbreaking what just played out in Louisville today. This is happening every day in this country and only in this country. People on both sides of the aisle want some common sense laws to keep people safe. We're not taking away everyone's guns. We're just simply trying to mitigate the likelihood that we see more of these mass events happen. But gun violence plays out in this country every day in every community. And that's why this uniquely American problem, we have a duty to try to address it. The biggest threat to our kids is not books, it's guns.
So in your state, you're dealing with the biggest issues. It's a microcosm of everything we're dealing with in this country. Abortion rights, which you've sort of now solved a lot of until they get rid of mifepristone, gun issues, LGBTQ rights, and they all fall into the same category. They are topics that, broadly speaking, a majority of Americans support sensible laws on or sensible governance on. How do you manage this when you're actually having a real conversation? You've almost been blessed in Michigan by the fact that you haven't had logical debates with your opponents on these issues because they've staked out such extreme positions. There are conservatives warning people, including Ann Coulter this week, saying, y'all are going to lose if you keep staking out extreme positions. How much of that is important right now, that you are running against people who are not normal, run-of-the-mill Republican conservatives in this country?
Well, listen, I'd much rather have an honest debate on facts with someone who sees the world differently than me, than these conspiracy theorists and people that don't care about the democracy. They care about power and they care about controlling other people. That's not what this country is at our best, right? We have a duty to try to find common ground, to make space at the table for people who don't see the world the same way. And yet right now you saw what happened in Tennessee, where they didn't like two of the three people that were speaking out about the gun violence that played out there not long ago. And they just threw them out of the legislature. Now, one's already going to be reinstated. It looks like the other one will as well. Thank goodness. Thank you to the good people who are doing that work and know that they work for the people instead of the other way around. But that's very much what's at risk here. That's why these local elections and who your governor is and legislatures matters in your daily life. You want common sense gun policies, got to elect common sense gun policy people.
Yeah. Governor, good to see you. Thank you for joining us this evening.